Good morning, PF friends, and welcome to our writing workshop this morning. Today we're focusing on paragraphs, and you can see on the screen that I have a story that is all one big paragraph. Now, I don't think most of you have a story that's only one paragraph, but we're going to be looking at how we can create new paragraphs in this story because I am going to ask you to look at your story a little more closely today and think about where you might add a new paragraph. I love new paragraphs in writing because it gives my mind a moment to think and consider what I've already read, and then sort of turn my attention to a new idea or a new set of actions that's happening in the story. So we want to make sure that we're giving our readers that space to really think about what's happening in our story. So Monday afternoon, Wendell Fultz's mother told him to clean his room. "It's turning into a pigsty," she said. Wendell went upstairs. So at this point, we're turning from this conversation that Wendell is having with his mother to him going upstairs. So I want to start a new paragraph there. Wendell went upstairs. There's a change in the action. Much to his surprise, a large pig was sitting on his bed. "Pardon me," said Wendell. He shoved some toys into his closet. I'm going to add a new paragraph here. After Wendell speaks to the pig, he takes an action. He turns his attention to the toys. He shoved some toys into his closet, but the pig didn't seem to mind the mess, and Wendell found that he didn't mind the pig either. He decided to take a break. When Wendell's mother, so at that moment, now some time has passed, he's decided to take a break. Now Wendell's mother is coming into his room. So let's start a new paragraph there. That's a new thing that is happening in the story. When Wendell's mother came to look at his room, the pig was hiding, but the mess was still there. She threw up her hands. "Okay, Wendell," she said, "if you want to live in a pigsty, that's up to you." Wendell could hardly believe his luck. "Now I can live however I want." Now I'm going to pause here because this is something that Wendell's mother is saying, and this is something that Wendell is saying. And remember that we want to start a new paragraph for dialogue with a different person. So I'm going to start a new paragraph right there. Wendell could hardly believe his luck. We're turning our attention from what Wendell's mother is saying to what Wendell is saying. And that dialogue can stay right there in that paragraph. Wendell could hardly believe his luck. Now I can live however I want. He didn't even worry when he came home on Tuesday. I should start a new paragraph here because now we're talking about a completely different day of the week. So let's start a new paragraph. He didn't even worry when he came home on Tuesday and found a second pig in his room. The mess had grown a bit worse, but he was able to jam most of it under his bed. "Pigs are all right," he said, "as long as it's only one or two." In fact, they had a wonderful time. They played Monopoly. Okay, so I'm noticing that there's a slight change here. He found another pig in his room. He's like, "Pigs are all right as long as it's only one or two." And then it goes on to kind of talk about what they're doing over time. So I'm going to start a new paragraph there. In fact, they had a wonderful time. They played Monopoly until late each night and left the pieces lying all over the floor. They had paper airplane wars and pillow fights. The bed became a trampoline. Then two more pigs showed up. The mess just grew and grew. That night, when Wendell went to bed, this might be a new place to start a paragraph. Do you agree? Yes, let's start a new paragraph because the time is changing. We're going from all of the when they had a wonderful time to that night. That night, when Wendell went to bed, the pigs were lying everywhere. They rolled up in his blankets and hogged his pillows, too. Wendell told himself he didn't mind, but then he found hoof prints on his comic books. And Friday, when he got home from school, he saw that someone had been sitting on his basketball. We might start a new paragraph there since we're talking about a new day. And Friday, when he got home from school, he saw that someone had been sitting on his basketball, and his baseball cards were chewed. That does it, said Wendell. I've had enough. He ran downstairs to tell his mother. I think we should start a new paragraph here. Can you tell me why? Yes, we have new action happening. The scene is changing, and now Wendell is doing something different. He ran downstairs to tell his mother. Sorry, she said, but your room is your responsibility. She handed him a broom. Wendell started to complain. The mess was too huge. This might be a place to start a new paragraph. Turning our attention from Mom to Wendell. Wendell started to complain. The mess was too huge, but suddenly he remembered a saying he'd heard that many hooves make light work. He marched upstairs and organized a cleaning crew. Let's start a new paragraph here. Do you know why? Yep, the action is changing. Wendell's going to a different location. He marched upstairs and organized a cleaning crew. They swept and scoured, polished and scrubbed. Later that afternoon, I think we should start a new paragraph here. Do you know why? Because a lot of time has passed and we're going to a new action. Later that afternoon, Wendell inspected his room and pronounced it clean. In fact, it was a bit too clean from a pig's point of view. So while Wendell inspected, the pigs prepared to go home. I'm going to start a new paragraph here. We're turning our attention from what Wendell was doing to what the pigs are doing. So while Wendell inspected, the pigs prepared to go home. One of them made a phone call, and a farm truck came to pick them up. They hugged and grunted and oinked goodbye. From that day on, I think this will be our great final paragraph. From that day on, Wendell kept his room clean, except for those nights when his friends came by to play Monopoly. Now, as we look at our story, we can see there are a lot of breaks, and really it looks like a real story. We can see how action is changing. We can see how the character's point of view is changing, going from Wendell's mother to Wendell. We can also see how time is changing. That night, when Wendell went to bed, I want you to look for those elements in your story too, and make sure that you're identifying all those places with a new paragraph. One other thing I want to show you is something that I learned from Jaden, and that is making an extra space after each paragraph all at once. Here's how you do it. You highlight your entire piece and then go to line spacing, add space after paragraph. There you go. Now we can see those little spaces after each paragraph. They stand apart here. So he showed me that at the end of class writing workshop on Monday. So I wanted to be sure that you saw it too. Thanks, Jaden, for your help, and everyone else for your hard work. I look forward to seeing how your story develops when you add new paragraphs.